quiet all of a sudden. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming today. I appreciate it. My name is Jeff Hagen, and I think, I'm the interim executive director here for a while. And I got kind of surprised the rest of the team. I wasn't supposed to start till next week. And then I actually got into town yesterday, starting today. So I must commend Eleanor and the rest of the gang. They did a heck of a job of getting our apartment ready to go and getting me all set up to do things, and welcoming me, my wife, and myself. So I wanted to take an opportunity today to introduce myself.
Use the microphone closer to
A
your
little closer. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, good. Everybody here okay? Good. I tend to talk a little quick sometimes, so if I get too fast, just wave and say, slow down. Or if you can't hear, just tell me you can't hear, and we'll keep it going. And I'm on camera, so hello folks. Eleanor told me not to walk too far side to side. I like to kind of walk around and see both sides of the room. But I have to kind of watch that too. A little introduction for you, and have a little game here so you can kind of get a sense of where I'm from, where we're from, my background, kind of a deal. So way back in the mid last century, I came into the world as a badger. Anybody recognize the badger? Wisconsin, or a cheesehead? Wisconsin. Okay. My dad's background forced me to be a Wolverine for a while. After I outgrew that, I went to college and became a Chippewa. That might be a challenge. Central Michigan University. And then I married my lovely wife, and we had a couple kids, a couple girls. Our first daughter is Courtney, and her college career took her to be a Spartan. Michigan State, okay, so you can see where the Wolverine kind of fell off the radar. And recently I became a Gator, Florida. So what am I now that I'm in Richmond? What should I be?
Spider.
A spider? Okay. Anything else besides a spider around here? That's it, a spider. Okay.
Or a ram.
Or a ram. Okay. Which one wins, spider or ram? Spider.
Or wahoo. Wahoo wah.
A wahoo? Ah, okay. Cool. Let's see. What else can I tell you about me?
What is your wife's name?
Oh, that's coming. We'll get to that point. My wife's name. How I got into this industry, this field, as a Chippewa at Central Michigan. My undergrad degree is in accounting. Any accountants in the area? No? Okay. So my jobs early in my career were accounting kind of jobs. There's the accountant, okay. Cost accounting, general accounting, all that kind of good stuff. And then when I would balance my checkbook each month, if I was within $10, I was pretty good. Realized that's not really a true accountant. So I figured, okay, I gotta do something else. I moved into management, where you don't have to be quite so detailed conscious at that level. Everybody else does all the little stuff down there. So I got into that. Worked in a large insurance company, health insurance, Blue Cross and Blue Shield in Michigan. And I got associated with HMO, Health Alliance Plan in Detroit, Michigan. And then I ventured into physician management. I ran a group of doctors for a while. And if you heard the phrase herding cats, that's what you do when you're trying to keep surgeons in line. Then I decided to try something else. So in 1998, I got into the senior living field. I took a job with the Michigan Masonic Home as their Director of Administrative Services. And at that point, managed care was supposed to be coming into senior living. It never really did, but I stayed in senior living. And the reason why is I started in April of 1998, April 1998, started with Masonic Home. The next winter, one of the residents there, I got to know him and his wife quite well, because they were on kind of the main corridor where I would walk frequently, and I would see them. Well, his wife passed away. And in Michigan, in the wintertime, you don't go too long without having a lot of snow on the ground, a blizzard. At the time that his wife passed away, they were having a memorial service. His family couldn't get there for the service. So I was the guy that had known him from walking the hallway. So him and I got talking about it. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll sit with you. I'll be your support system for the memorial service and whatever you need after that. It was at that point that I really realized, as small and inconsequential as that may have seemed, it had a huge impact on me, that I actually could help somebody better their life through just something real simple like that. So from that point on, it just went on. I realized that I found where I wanted to be in my life as a career. You probably heard the phrase, if you find your passion, you'll never work a day again in your life. Well, that's when 1998 was when I found my passion. And so I don't feel I've really worked since then. I love what I do. I retired in 2020 from Hagen at the University of Florida down in Gainesville. And right after, like 2 months after the COVID hit. So it was kind of one of those lucky deals to get out. But then I got back in October of that year, actually right in town here in Lakewood. I did an interim there for 4 months. Who has been lucky enough to have COVID? Okay. We got it too. On December 1st of 2020, I tested positive for COVID. No vaccines available yet at that point in time. I was very fortunate. I had a mild case, some fatigue, a little bit of fever, but pretty much not too bad. 2 weeks later, my lovely wife got it. Again, before vaccines. She had a much worse case than I did. I actually wound up with double pneumonia, and thankfully it didn't go to the hospital. Spent a couple days in the ER room just getting treated, but has recovered nicely too as well. So I've been doing interim work since then. I've done one in Lakewood, in Richmond. Did one in Windsor Mead, which is another Pinnacle Living community over in Williamsburg. And we just completed another one up in McLean, Virginia, with the Vincent Hall retirement community up there. And when you did your research looking for a place to retire, I'm guessing you didn't look just at this place. You looked at other places and discovered if you look at one life plan community, you've seen just one life plan community because they're all different. Similar, but different. Each community that we found has its own culture. Been very interesting in Florida with the University of Florida community. We had a lot of professors, deans, those kind of folks. So we would have meetings and talk about things, and you know how professors are. Did you do your research? Well, let me do the research for you. So they have actually helped with the research for us too. So it wasn't just a quick kind of deal. Up in Virginia, up at McLean with the military group, there was the Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard folks there. Much different approach to life. But each place we've been has been very interesting to be. We're looking forward to being here for the next 3 or 4 months, and the interest that knowledge will gain from you folks. Can't wait to hear stories, what your life was like, what you're looking for in the future. And you moved to a great community because you had the foresight to offer a good gift to your children and to yourself, realizing that once you move to a community like this, you are here for life. But it's a good life because you have your social life, you have new folks and new friends that you met, but you also have that access to the health care that's very important at the right time of your life. That's a little bit about me. I can invite my wife, Patty, to come up so you can see her. I'll give her a chance to talk as well. When we decided to do this interim kind of a deal, we said, let's do it as a tag team. So Dan and you folks, you get 2 for the price of 1. We're not charging double. But she comes along. She likes to get involved with the residents of the community. She actually is some of my eyes and ears on things that happen around campus. So what I may not see or hear, I'll get home at night and she'll go, did you know about this. And I go, no, tell me about it. So I get kind of a little bit of backstory and some things happening around campus too. So I look forward to her getting involved as well. I know Florence has already reached out to her and getting her kind of involved in the wellness area. So I'm going to give her a chance to introduce herself, say a couple things, then we'll open it up to some questions and go from there. So thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm really thrilled to be here. When, right before we left Vincent Hall, Jeff called and said, "You'll never believe who I got a call from today." I think that was you, right? We were never going to take another job. And then when I found out where it was, I love Richmond, and who it was for, I was right on. And when we left Windsor Mead, I was the wife who sobbed. I can't believe I loved living there so much. And walking in here, I feel like I'm home. So thank you. And thank you for allowing Jeff to come in and do what he loves. Because obviously he is bad at retirement. And so as long as he chooses to work, it's really nice for him to be able to work in a place that he loves. So thank you. I look forward to getting to know a lot of you.
And your name?
I'm Patty.
So you see I wear a name tag because I can't remember who I am half the time. So I don't know if you all have name tags, but I would just ask you if you would have a name tag, if you would mind wearing it for a while, so at least I can get to know people a little bit. It's much easier. I'd just rather walk up to you and say, "Hey George, how you doing?" as opposed to, "What's your name again?" It's just, it helps us to do that. And you'd be surprised, as new residents move in, they're gonna wanna know who you are too. It's easy for you to remember me. You know me, you know my name, you know my wife's name now. I look out the room, I go, I'll bet we got a Betty out here someplace, and probably a Mary, and probably a Bill, and all that kind of stuff, but I don't know for sure. So it helped just a lot to do that. Okay, any questions? I'm 72. I'm 6 feet, I weigh about 184. Other question? Okay.
What do you hope to accomplish in the 4 months you may be with us?
What do I hope to accomplish in the 4 months I'm here? Good question. I appreciate you asking that. The primary objective from my perspective is, we got any sailors here, or people that ride boats and that kind of a deal? Okay. You all know if you list too much to port or too much to starboard, it's not too good, and that's kind of a nice even keel. That's what I want to do. I want to be the person that you can come to and say, okay, what's going on? What's happening? We know you're looking for a new executive director. What can you tell us? Where are we? I want to be the person to help you understand what's happening day to day. If you see something happen on campus and you're wondering what's going on, I want you to be comfortable to come to me and say, okay, the buzz out there is such and such. Can you tell us what's really going on? The grapevine is an amazing thing. If I want to get information out to you, I can ask Eleanor to do something and put it in email or in the box or whatever. But I bet if I tell 3 of you what's going on, within 30 minutes, it's all across campus. But I want to keep that to be truthful. Okay, I want that information to be factual, to make sure we're all on the same page, trying to get the same thing done. Okay, that answer your question? Part of it? Yeah, a little bit? Okay. What I'll be doing is I'll be looking at, I met with the directors this morning, the leadership team. And I'll be meeting with each of those directors and understanding what's happening in their departments and bringing my knowledge and experience to them to help them become a better leader, have them have a better department, and us in the end have a better community, a better place for you folks to live. Not that it's a bad place to live now, but I think that we can always have a little room for improvement here and there. That's my goal too, is to really make sure our leadership team is working together and working for your benefit.
Were you given any mandate when you were hired?
Show up. Other than that, yes, the mandate, like I just stated, is to get involved with the directors and really learn what's happening some behind the scenes. And if there are areas to be improved, how can we improve them and how can we get it going? Yes.
You were at Oak Hammock in Gainesville, Florida.
Yes.
You were there. Well, I visited there once. When it was first opened, we had friends there. And that was a really nice place. Were you there when it opened?
I was not. It opened in 2004. I was there from 2016 to 2020. Yeah. It was interesting. When I took over that community, they were being managed by an outside management firm. They hired me because I used to work for an outside management firm, but they wanted to go self-operation. So I was brought in the transition from being managed by an outside firm to actually becoming self-operation. So that was my mandate there, was to help do that. But you're right, it's an amazing community. As I mentioned, it's a lot of professors, a lot of deans, a couple of retired university professors, a lot of chiefs, and a lot of people who believed in paralysis by analysis. But I say that on the one side. On the other side, they were a tremendous group of residents to work with. I've always told my directors, you manage your resources. You know, we're in this together. This is a community of residents who put their life savings on the line for a place to live, a place to really grow and develop in their golden years, so to speak. But we need to recognize that just because they're retired doesn't mean they are retired. A lot of them still want to do things. And how can we help them still have that productivity in life that they like? In Florida, there's a thing called the Governor's Award. And it's a prestigious award that you get by meeting certain standards, and particularly in your healthcare area. I was fortunate enough down there to have a couple of residents who actually sat on that committee at one point in their life. And so when we decided to pursue that as an objective, they stepped forward and said, I'll tell you what, we'll do the paperwork. We can get this stuff filled out. I'll work with your team, get all the information we need, but we'll do the legwork for you. So really within about 2 months, they showed up in my office with this stack of paper and said, here, sign here. Yeah, they did the work. It was amazing, the knowledge they had, the expertise they had, and they loved doing it. It was really a joy for them to do it. We went down to Orlando, I think, no, we went to Tallahassee at that point in time, and met with the committee, and they came along with us. They did the interview of our team, and we got the award. And so it was just a tremendous, tremendous opportunity. We had an art committee down there that managed over 700 pieces of artwork throughout the entire community. I had to do nothing with it. My team, we had a group of, I think there was probably close to 8 to 10 ladies on that committee. They managed all that artwork. They would take donations from residents and say, okay, we're going to manage this for you. You have to donate it, you have to give up ownership of it. And they would take it and they would place it around campus. And then every once in a while they would move it around to give a little, different appearance. So that's what I mean by managing resources. I'm sure you all have your backgrounds where you've done things where you probably every once in a while go, I wish I could kind of dabble in what I used to do. Okay. We don't know what that is, but maybe we can find out what that is, and maybe we can help you help us. The thing you have to do, remember too, and I always tell the residents this too, is I love advice, but I'm going to make the decision. So you can tell me what you think we should do, but please understand, we're going to make the decision of what is going to be the best for the organization, for you, and for the team members as well. And if I say no, you'll know why I said no. It's just not going to be, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. I'll tell you what we've done from our research on this side But please, the advice that you give us is nice. I talked to Dave, our dining services director, and he just loves working with the dining committee because they're an advisory committee for him. But he also, tells them, we're gonna make the final decision, but we're gonna do the best we can to incorporate your thoughts into the process as well.
How do you plan to interact with employees, not at the director level, but get to know them and especially get to know healthcare area?
Everybody hear the question? How do I plan interacting with the team members? Not just the directors, but the people who actually do all the work. I've toured a couple of times now around the building. I noticed down one of the halls here, there's a team dining area. I will pop in there and have lunch with those folks. I'll go to healthcare and I'll walk around and I'll sit down with a group of folks. I haven't found the break room yet, but I'm sure there's an employee break room around here someplace. I'll find that. I'll have conversations with the people in those areas as well. I don't sit in my office 8 hours a day. I'll be there a couple hours a day, but I tend to get out and walk around, and whoever I come across, it's, hi, how you doing? So I do that. I like to understand how, whatever we make this decision at this level, how it impacts these people down here too. They're the ones that are really people that you face to face with. You do a dining service or you go for dinner, it's the servers that you're talking to. We had dinner last night in the dining room. We met Alex. He's a tremendous guy. He's been here about a month. He's still trying to do his thing, but he's already got a great sense of pleasing how to take care of you folks. He did a great job taking care of us last night. So it's just, that's how we do it. We're not afraid to, the benefit of having a very lovely lady with me here is she is not afraid to get out and mingle. And women to women talk different than men to men talk. So I can't wait to hear what I hear tonight. Other questions? Yes.
Have a speaker, but I'd like to know what you might be able to help us with this past weekend, where all hell broke loose. First, we didn't have electricity on Friday, and then Saturday comes up, and many cottages had no water and no heat. And in trying to get someone on the phone, it became impossible. And of course, I suppose that ruins Christmas.
So you're curious how I would handle disaster planning? I run. No. I'll be looking at it to make sure we have a disaster plan in place. And if it's not being followed, we need to make sure we review it and update it to make sure we have the right communication in place. The whole key is communication. I can't turn back on the water. I can't turn back the electricity. But if I can communicate to you that where we are in the process of trying to get it back, at least you can feel comfortable about they're working on it. And that simply comes down to, electricity gone might be tough because normally you'd put out an APB, so to speak, through everybody's email or through the phone system to let you know every once in a while where we are in the process. If we've reached out to the electric company, that kind of a deal. In other communities I've been at, I know we have always stressed reaching out to those folks before you have a crisis. Just like the newspapers. This industry, you're well aware, especially in the skilled area, healthcare area, it's the news likes to pick up on the bad things that happen in a nursing home. What I've always done is maintain a good relationship with the newspapers or the radio stations in town, either through myself or through my communications people. So we're talking when things are going good. So if things does go bad, they call us first to make sure whatever they're hearing is true, instead of just running with what they think is happening. It'd be the same thing with a power outage. We should be having some kind of communication with the power company when things are going good. So when things do happen to go bad, we have somebody we can call right away and say, hey, keep us informed, at least what's going on. We know there was a 15-car pileup over here and they took down 14 electric poles or whatever it is. Where are you in the process of getting the house up and running again? Or in Florida, we had, an ice storm, or not an ice storm, we had the hurricane come through. I'm thinking Michigan too. We had a hurricane come through first year we were there, and the main road coming into our campus, trees were blown over and took down the wires. Well, we were out of power for 19 hours. But at least we had generator power to take care of it for the campus. We also had contact with the power companies to know where we stood in the queue as far as getting things back up and running, so we could put that information out. And at that point, we did it simply. We had a whiteboard in the main lobby, and so residents could walk up and say, oh, okay, at 1:10, they heard from the power company that they are now on Williston Road and working on the trees. And at 2 o'clock, they're still doing it. 3 o'clock, they're still doing it. 4 o'clock, things are looking better. So it's to me, it's information, transparency. If I know it, I'm gonna help you know it too. Did that answer your question? I can't fix this past weekend, sorry.
I'm just concerned with who is not here to answer the phones.
Who was not here to answer the phone?
Not here to answer the phones. Folks did not get highlight my messages. I did get a few live people, and I got a concierge who knew nothing.
Okay, that comes, yeah, she said she's having trouble getting the phone answered. So that will come down to, as I mentioned, looking at our disaster plan to make sure it's up to date. That disaster plan should have a phone tree in there, so if something like this does happen, we have a way of reaching out to people to keep people informed. There always should be somebody answering the phone, somewhere, somehow, some way. So I'll have to look at the disaster plan and make sure that's in there.
Okay, and mostly, all of Saturday seemed to have happened to the cottages. Some of the cottages, or most, I have no idea how many. I know we were completely out, and had it not been for our outside plumber, we would have been out of luck.
And it was cold too, wasn't it, this past weekend?
Very chilly.
Yeah. I know we were cold in Florida too. Not as cold as you were up here though. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us what some of your interests are?
Some of my interests? Sure. Actually, she got me into this a little bit, my wife. One of her bucket list items was to hike the Appalachian Trail. The first job we took in Richmond 2 years ago got us close to the Appalachian Trail. So one of our first weekends in town, we drove west and got to Skyline Drive and got over to, I think it's Humpback Mountain or Humpback, whatever it is over there, and went down this little trail. And lo and behold, there's a sign that says Appalachian Trail North, Appalachian Trail South. Got a picture on the Appalachian Trail, do it. But since then, we've done several more miles on the trail. And that's what's exciting about coming back here now too. As the weather warms up, we'll do that again too. We have 2 grandchildren. My interests lie with them quite a bit. Nolan is 14, Lucy is 11. Nolan's a freshman plays freshman soccer. High score. I think he's got a good, maybe a college career there. We'll see. We're hoping. That kind of deal. I love to fish. Never do enough of it. I like to play golf.
Salt or fresh water?
I have not done any salt. I've done a couple surf casting deals, but mostly it's been freshwater trout fly fishing. Like Tom Island flies, I like to fly fish. And my wife always says, "You never bring any fish home." I says, "Well, fishing is the fun part. If I catch a fish, that's a bonus. And sometimes they're only this big, and you can't bring them home. And it's easier to go to the store and pick up a fish."
He probably doesn't use any bait.
Things outdoors. We just like to do stuff outdoors. We got into pickleball. We have pickleball here?
Yes.
2 courts? Who's the champ? Who's the champ? Where's the champ?
Really been able to play.
Just getting started? Okay.
Just got finished.
Wow.
Yeah, well, good. So I guess a little warmer, we can play a little pickleball. What time do you play? Morning, afternoon? Anytime we want. Okay, good.
Stained glass.
Yeah. Musical interests. In elementary school, I guess when I was younger, about this big, I got braces on my teeth. And at that point, I was playing clarinet. It didn't mix too well with the braces, so I switched to drums, and I've been playing drums ever since. Braces are long gone. Hobby-wise, stained glass. I've done a lot of stained glass in my life too. Haven't done a lot recently, but I enjoy doing that as well. Creativity is fun. Patty bought me a stained glass class from an auction, I think it was. And I thought, well, okay, I'm not creative, I can't do this. Went to the class, thoroughly enjoyed it, and just took off and had a lot of fun. And I do not the typical kind of stained glass, I do a little more kind of sculptures with it. It's a lot of fun. Hiking, walking, riding bikes, outdoor kind of stuff, chatting. Yeah. Other questions? Yes. Wait, hold on a second.
Has anybody told you we have some beavers in the pond that are remaking the landscape down there? And just to clue you in, they're just cutting trees like nobody's business. So I hope that will be in the near future for Cedarfield to figure out what are we going to do about those beavers.
Well, in my lifetime, every time I found a beaver dam, usually had trout behind it, so I went fishing. So I might just go fishing down there.
The beavers will be relocated in the next couple of weeks.
Where are they going to relocate them to, do you know? They don't tell you, okay.
Andy, sir, we just learned about the beavers at our latest facility committee meeting. And Lacey Salamone, our Director of Facilities, Engineering and Maintenance, had a meeting this week with a representative from Henrico County. And he learned that beavers cannot be relocated. And so we either live with them or have to come up with another solution. So we will wait and see what Lacey and his colleagues decide to do. But that's the bottom line.
So we can't relocate them. I know some in Michigan, they propose, they are actually quite a hazard too, because they can build some pretty big dams. And so they didn't relocate them, they would just blow up the dam. And so they would relocate on their own. So we may have to look at that as, I'm not sure we could do that in this area, we couldn't blow it up, but somehow make it so they don't want to live there, and they would relocate on their own. That might be an option too, have to look at that.
Leave a dead one in the pond and the others.
Leave a dead one in the pond, but how do you get a dead one? I'm not going to be a...
Wait.
Okay.
We had the beavers once before and they took care of them. So you might want to contact a person called Jay Quell who used to work here.
Okay. So we've had them before. And they've come back.
No.
They must like it here.
No, I think the construction on Treetop
The
probably.
construction on the treetops?
Treetop Road probably,
Oh, Three Shot Road, gotcha.
but
Okay,
who
yeah.
knows? That's Mother Nature.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I just said we had them before and we did deal with it, and I suggested Jay Quell be talked to for history.
Other questions?
How do you solve a problem like Maria?
Last thing.
Like Maria.
Yeah, we all have, not just you, this community, but every community I've been at has survived COVID. Yeah, we had pre-COVID where life was absolutely amazing. We had the initial part of COVID where everybody freaked out about what was going on, rightfully so, because it was dangerous. Then we had kind of the end of COVID, and now we're kind of what we think are maybe post-COVID. Life, because of COVID, has changed. Pre-COVID, you did everything you wanted to do whenever you wanted to do it. Post-COVID, we're trying to get back to that kind of lifestyle as well, which means we have to look at everything we do on campus, and is this the way we used to do it? Not that was the best way, but is this the way we used to do it, and do we need to get back to that kind of living? Or is there a better way of doing what we used to do now to make it even better for you as well? So you may see some changes in some things that you become used to because of COVID that may be different going into the future. I'm not real sure what they might be, but just think about that from everything we do on day-to-day around this campus to make life good for you and for the team members. We're going to be evaluating all those kind of things that we do, all our operations, and say, okay, what's the best way to do this going forward, whether it relates to food or maintenance or healthcare or whatever, how we hire our teams, whatever it is, how we fill in our blanks as far as our vacancies on weekends and staffing situations. We're trying to be as creative as we can to do all this stuff. So maybe some changes that you may or may not like, but keep in mind that everything we're going to do is for the betterment of your lifestyle and our team's lifestyle as well. We'll seek input from the different committees as we do these different kind of changes, but just don't be surprised if something you may have become accustomed to because of COVID is now being changed to try and get back to what it used to be before COVID. Okay? I'll be back.
You should be, if you're not already made aware of the fact that Resident Council passed a resolution about resident input on things just in November, I think, but very recently.
What was that resolution?
I'll get a copy to you today.
Okay. Is it a good resolution?
Yes.
The resolution was basically asking the administration to include residents in the decision-making process, understanding that the decision rests with administration.
Okay. Sounds like a livable resolution. And that's where I mentioned earlier, the input I get from residents is valuable to me. And very rarely do I have an issue with a resident who says, well, we told you to do this. You know, I understand you may have given us advice on what you thought we should do, but again, keep in mind, as you agreed to, the decision still rests with us on what we're going to do going forward. But I do value, it's like anything else. If I come to you and say, you cannot have that little dog anymore, you're going to be all upset. But if we talk about dogs and go, here's the situation with dogs, and here's what their problem is, and here's what we think are some resolutions to it, what do you think we should do about your dog? And you're going to have some ideas too. And we're going to come to an agreement, and I can sell that resolution to everybody else much easier than just dictating you got to get rid of that dog. So that's kind of the approach I like to take. Anything else?
Thank you.
I have no cookies, I have no punch, and anything like that. One last thing too. Because we live on campus, we're going to be on campus most of the time, so we enjoy eating on campus. If you would like, feel free to invite Patty and I to have dinner with you some night. We'd love to get to know all of you a little bit better in a social atmosphere as opposed to a straight business atmosphere. It's going to be fun.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.